All right, in the meantime, as he and I were chatting there, word that the United Nations is set to vote on this so-called Israeli settlement issue. On the phone with us is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, the gist of this is to condemn the Israelis for settlements, ongoing settlement building that has already gotten the wrath of Donald Trump, this move, because he says it's a pile-on and it's not fair. The Israeli leadership has said the same thing. How do you feel?
Neil, if President Obama allows this resolution to go forward, he will cement his deserved legacy as the most anti-Israel president ever. Because this resolution is actually harsher towards Israel than a resolution his ambassador vetoed just 5 years ago, saying the United Nations cannot impose these kind of terms on the parties to negotiations in the Middle East, and calling upon Israel to stop building homes in Jerusalem, in their very own capital. It would be as if some country told us that citizens living in Washington, D.C. couldn't add on to their home or build another apartment building. It's outrageous that President Obama is trying to sneak this through on the Friday before Christmas and doesn't even have the courage to have his ambassador vote for his handiwork.
So essentially what we're doing, Senator, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're allowing this measure demanding an end to this settlement building to go through without necessarily taking a position on it. Regardless, it would be the first time we have endorsed something that would be damaging to the Israelis or seen as damaging to the Israelis. Am I right about that?
Well, Neil, that's right, but I actually think it's worse than that. New Zealand and Senegal and other small countries like that don't set the agenda at the United Nations Security Council. The United States and other great powers do. Barack Obama is personally responsible for this resolution. And if he feels this way, if he truly believes this anti-Israel resolution is the right course of action, then he should have the courage of his conviction and order his ambassador to vote for it, not abstain from it like a moral coward.
So it goes through, they get condemned. You have a President-elect Trump who has already condemned this, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is trying to work through the President-elect to stop this, I'm sure through your offices as well, for all I know. But it's going to go through, and it's going to be very embarrassing. Then what?
Well, this is President Obama, in my opinion, trying to tie the President-elect's hands. Some people criticize President-elect Trump, but President Obama is actually the one who's taking decisions out of the President-elect's hands in a way that George W. Bush did not do to President Obama. In fact, he did the very opposite, acting on some of President-elect Obama's requests at the time. There's going to be consequences, though, coming from the Congress as this resolution goes forward. The United Nations and every country that supports this resolution will face the potential cutoff of all forms of U.S. assistance to their country or to the United Nations. It's past time that we begin to use the leverage that we have over these countries to insist they not take these kind of anti-Israel actions against our closest allies in the Middle East.
Do you think, though, that the Israelis, with this settlement building, got a little too aggressive, and that this was a little too provocative in a region of the world that doesn't need it, that there's such a thing as building settlements and then quite another to build them to the degree they have?
No, of course not, Neil. And just to put it in context, what so many people call a settlement is a neighborhood. It would be as if the people who are building new homes in the suburbs of Little Rock are told they can no longer do so by a foreign power. This wasn't even an issue for the Palestinians until Barack Obama came into office and began to look for ways to create daylight, to use his term, between the United States and Israel. And once he demanded it, the Palestinians demanded it as well. This is not the obstacle to peace. The obstacle to peace in the Middle East is the intransigence of Palestinian leaders to recognize Israel as a Jewish state with the right to exist peacefully, and their support and incitement for terrorism.